So I was watching this video on the Young Turks. It was about how the media was covering this story about Mitt Romney answering a French reporter about what he thought about France. When he answered the question, he went on for quite some time, and Cenk was lamenting the fact that the media was covering this like it was a big deal. Cenk declared that it was a media-driven story, and he came up with a new rule. He said that whether or not the media covers a story is irrelevant to its importance. Certainly, this story holds up that rule. How Mitt Romney answered this particular question has nothing to do with whether or not he'd be a good president, and it has nothing to do with his policies. And of course, you don't hear much about important things like what is Mitt Romney's position on drone strikes in the Middle East. Now, the most prevalent reason for why the media covers certain stories and not others has to do with ratings. In an attempt to get the highest ratings possible, the media has a tendency to appeal to the lowest common denominator. This has a lot to do with why they cover a lot of silly stories, but don't cover a lot of important things. Because it's quite often the case that people aren't interested in these more wonkish things, and they're more drawn to these stupid, silly stories. However, I think there's another motive in the media that explains why they cover certain stories, and it certainly applies in this case. The media is very quick to build narratives about people. If an individual in the news world does a handful of things that allude to a certain character trait, they are then defined by that for the rest of their career. This is because the media succumbs to confirmation bias. They'll only cover things that fit into that paradigm and ignore anything that wouldn't. I'm sure you can think of several of these already. Sarah Palin is stupid. Michelle Bachmann is crazy. George W. Bush is inept. Al Gore is a dead fish. John Kerry is awkward and out of touch. And now so is Mitt Romney. Now, there is some truth to all of these narratives. Some of them are more true than others, but the fact is these people are locked into them for the rest of their lives. With his newly minted status as an inelegant blue blood, this story about him talking about how he likes to vacation in France is a perfect fit, even if it is completely irrelevant from a news perspective. As far as the media is concerned, this is the truth about Mitt Romney, and he's locked into it. They'll only cover stories that fit into this paradigm. Now, to this point, oddly enough, there's no prevalent narrative on Obama, neither him nor his presidency. Now, you really can't judge the effectiveness of this president or his policies at this point. That book will be written sometime later. However, a lot of people are trying to define his first and possibly only term as it's coming to a close. There are, of course, a few narratives out there, but they're inadequate and they're not wholly subscribed to. I'm going to exclude, of course, the Republican narrative that he's a communist, because I don't think they provided any good evidence for that. But there are a few attempts by sensible people to describe what exactly is governing his actions. The first one is that he's really this progressive lion, but he hasn't been able to do what he wants to do because of Republican obstruction. However, in his second term, assuming that he gets one, he'll come out and be truly a liberal. The other one I hear is that he's actually a moderate, and he's never actually been liberal. He just campaigned as one in an attempt to win, but his politics aren't actually there. I think if you look at certain information in isolation, that there are plausible reasons to believe these, but I don't think either of them describe the big picture as a whole. If I had to build a narrative about Obama and describe why he does what he does, I would describe him as someone who's trying to have things both ways. He wants to please everybody, and he doesn't want anyone upset at him. Now, like any rule, of course, there are exceptions to this. For instance, some of his actions are attributable to his efforts to get reelected. However, I think on the whole, this is the best description of him. Now consider his domestic policies. The stimulus was unprecedented in size. However, a third of it was tax cuts. He wanted to make it balanced so that Republicans would vote for it. Also consider his signature domestic policy, healthcare. He did get, for the first time, a federal healthcare plan passed, but it's a Republican plan. Also consider his stance on social issues. Nothing shows my narrative better probably than what he's done with gay rights. He's repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He's refused to defend the Defense of Marriage Act, but he hasn't yet come out for gay marriage, even though he probably does believe in it. So clearly he's trying to please the gay community and make things better for them, but he doesn't want to alienate people who are still opposed to same-sex marriage. Also, think about the Ground Zero Mosque. He came out for it, said that we're a nation that stands for religious freedom, and then the next day he retracted that statement by basically saying, well, I wasn't commenting on the wisdom of it. Even in foreign policy, I think this is true. Consider what he's done on the timetable of the Afghanistan war. As far as the withdrawal time goes, he essentially split the difference between what the Doves wanted and what the Hawks wanted. In Libya, he didn't want to stand idly by and watch people get massacred, but he didn't want to commit troops to another ground war, so he implemented a no-fly zone. When Barack Obama campaigned on bipartisanship, he wasn't just spitting out platitudes, he actually meant it. I think he genuinely believes that we can always reach a middle ground and compromise on just about everything. Now, how has that worked? Well, I think his refusal to take a principled stand on just about anything has made him seem weak and ineffective as a leader. As far as his conservative critics go, it's irrelevant. He's a socialist, and they're sticking to that narrative. Trying to please them is as useless as trying to compromise with Republicans. And lastly, his base is alienated because he hasn't lived up to their hopes. As far as his re-election is concerned, I guess we'll wait and see.